Right, glad to have you on the program.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Right. Well, I want to begin this way. What do you think Nigeria would possibly be like without oil?
Life without oil, incidentally, um, this has been, this has taken center stage because we've seen the disservice, shall I say, that oil has done to this country. Now, this is not saying that oil is bad, don't get me wrong. But the issue here is, if we can imagine for a second that we don't have oil, the question would be, wouldn't the genius in us be challenged to look for alternative sources, alternative ways of surviving? Now, let's be clear about this. It had happened in the past. Before oil was discovered, Nigeria's mainstay was agriculture, and we all remember the all too familiar story of the granite pyramids in the north, palm produce in the east, cocoa in the west, and most of the regions at that time met their developmental goals. They were in competition. Education was good. Not only was it pervasive, the standards were high. So the problem is, with the advent of oil, which appeared to give us an easy source of income, the genius, that genius is being rebuked in favor of laziness. And everybody's seeking rent, as it were, from this oil.
You have just mentioned that Nigeria found oil and, of course, the citizens became lazy. Now, isn't it an irony that we are blessed with this natural resources, called oil, and when we look at other countries who are also blessed with oil, they are really developing their countries with whichever resources they make out of it. Why is our own different?
That's the tragedy in Nigeria, and experts have proffered different reasons for why this is the case, but I think at the base of everything is corruption. And corruption itself is a product of what I call laziness. You see, if you teach a child, as a familiar saying goes, how to fish, you may not need to give him fish all his life. And this is what oil has become. When there was no oil, we sought to get things done, and we got them done. We priced things in the right fashion. We worked hard to get whatever we wanted. But oil has come. Instead of it being a blessing and a fulcrum upon which we develop other sectors, the reverse has become the case. And successive governments have appeared helpless. And what we are really seeing is one lazy excuse for why this is not happening. The NNPC, which is the custodian of everything oil in Nigeria, has remained the way it was almost from inception. There has been no real attempt. The other countries you mentioned who are using oil as a catalyst for development, the equivalents of the NNPC are competing globally.
Well, another question many would ask is if there's a better life with oil, can there really be a better life with oil?
You have to look at it from 2 points of view, from the reality on ground, and then what it could also be. Can there be a better life? Certainly, there can be a better life. We just need to stem corruption. We just need to put the right processes. We just need to do things different from the way we're doing it now. That's the only way you can get a better life with oil. The converse is what's happening to people in the oil producing areas. We all know of the familiar story of pollution. Most of them have lost their lives. I mean, in the sense that we understand good living to be. Because what they're left now with is the end product, the bad side of oil production. Their waters are polluted, there are cancer of every description going on. Their villages have been ravaged. The oil flares, the gas flares have completely scorched their earth and all. So for those ones, there cannot be a better life with oil. But it all comes down to the point that we're making. Let's begin to do things right so that those ones too can see a need for better life with oil.
You just talked about the regional government having to develop their regions with what they could produce, like the north had the Grand North, the south, cocoa, the east, palm oil. Now, talking about this diversification, don't you think that the states have a big role to play? Are they really playing those roles?
I think the reality is beginning to dawn on many states that we cannot be too over-dependent on this oil thing. And that's why you see some states are actually beginning to look at beyond oil. I mean, the shining example is Lagos. Lagos suffered one of the most brutal deprivations of its resources under the Obasanjo regime. And what did they do? They dug deep. They just acted as if that allocation was not coming from the center and found ways of generating revenue internally. So when eventually that money came, it went straight into infrastructure. So it's not an accident that Lagos is the state to beat in Nigeria. I think everybody admits that. And we can see the giant strides it continues to make. Now, for a state like Lagos, if oil joins that equation, you can imagine where they will go, because there's already the template for good governance. Delta has come out specifically with its own product, Delta Beyond Oil, which is very sensible. And I think I commend that to all the oil producing states. You must begin to look at life beyond oil so that you use the oil today to stimulate growth in other areas. Look at agriculture. Many states who produce oil today can still produce agriculture. So you've got to look. So many states can do that. Let's go to the northern states. The north used to be the agricultural base of Nigeria. So let's go back. Let them become the food basket. Not only can they feed the rest of Nigeria, they can actually export. And in any case, the fear of whether you would leave one state behind, for me, I think it's just a phantom fear. That fear does not truly exist. Because at the end of the day, when states compete, they will be forced to exchange goods and services. And that's a hallmark of good living. In any case, we are beginning to see what's happening with our oil reserves dwindling because we're not exploring, we're not putting money into, the PIB has not been passed, so no new money is going into oil exploration activities. The excess crude oil account is getting depleted, our reserves are getting depleted. States, there's been a shortfall, there's oil theft going on. So even the revenue shortfall from oil is beginning to dwindle. Now, the revenue shortfall, from oil is beginning to increase. And states are not getting what they had all projected in their budgets that they will get. So what do? Dig deep. So the answer is yes. States can manage without oil. It just requires good governance. So going forward, and that's the reason conversation like this must be at the center. Going forward, the electorate must begin to look for leaders who can make their lives better. It's no longer, no sentiment any longer. If the parties produce leaders who cannot deliver the goods, forget it, because that's monthly salary. One day it will not come. So what are you going to start eating up each other? So we need that. In the future that I see for Nigeria, we must get to that point where politics follows the economy, not the other way around.